Welcome to CaCo Talks, the weekly podcast where conversations about life, hot topics, mental health, and more take center stage. We are your hosts, Catelyn and Courtney Geiger.
Together, we explore thought-provoking discussions with an ambient vibe that inspires open and honest dialogue. So sit back, relax, and join us for some insightful conversation that will leave you feeling informed and inspired. Here's part 2 of our discussion on releasing unmet expectations.
Versus us, I'm like thinking about it when we came out of college with 2 side hustles.
Oh yeah, in college I had several jobs.
That's what I'm saying. In college, we were doing different things.
I had so many jobs. Like in college, I had between 2 and 3 jobs at majority of the time. Like, yeah, there was one time that at that time I had 2 jobs too. I've always had at least 2 jobs in college. Sometimes I would have 3. So yeah. Mm-hmm. So on top of like school, because school I didn't consider school a job.
Yeah, school. You know what? And I realized too, I didn't realize, especially after I started doing Wake TV, that was also another job that we actually ended up getting paid for. So I had like 2 jobs. Mm-hmm. I worked at a theater, school.
Still got tuition but left to pay.
Had that job, yeah. Still had tuition left to pay. And I was doing filmmaking. And sometimes I would get, if I was like selling artwork, I would get a check or whatever for that.
Uh-huh. Yep. So and mind you, those checks couldn't even cover tuition, to be fair.
No, absolutely not.
There was no chance they could cover tuition. I was getting, maybe $100, $200 every 2 weeks. Yeah. Like, that was just to get, like, basic necessities taken care of. Yeah. Gas. Like, majority of that went to gas for me. Just to get to and from work and to get to downtown to the places where we were doing clinicals. So...
Exactly. That's why I'm like, this whole like, oh, they're lazy is BS. We just don't do the same stuff y'all do. We don't just sit at a desk for 50
to be fair,
years.
You can't. That's not lazy. Like, you literally can't. Like,
that's what I'm saying. You can't either because first off, these jobs will just get rid of you like whatever.
That too.
And second off,
and they're not paying you like.
And they're not paying you, and you're like, I got multiple bills. Why would I sit here? And then the culture at these institutions be toxic as crap. So you're going in there and you're like, and I'm supposed to deal with Bob making the 3rd inappropriate joke for the day? No, ma'am, Pam. Let me get out and find something that, let me like hustle. If I got to hustle, I can hustle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if I'm going to have 3 and 4 jobs, I just go find me a new one.
Exactly. It's like they're not making themselves appeal. That lifestyle is no longer appealing because it's not sustaining. It's barely sustaining them at this point because things have gone up so much, even for boomers.
Facts. So, I think they get to live a little bit more comfortably in an aspect. You know, maybe their home is paid off. Obviously, it's harder to. I think some boomers are suffering because some boomers, they get their little Social Security
bills now.
Oh, they have medical bills and they get their Social Security check, but they're now seeing that's not cutting it. You know what I mean? Exactly. So I think now it's starting to hit home a little bit more, but they still feel like, oh, you should just get out there and work. You know, as millennials and teens.
We're working our behinds off. We're just not doing it the way you did it.
Yeah, but I think this is normal. Like, it's kind of like evolution. Things are going to change. And the boomers, we know that.
Yeah, that's true.
Boomers they are like allergic to change. So,
yeah. And it just becomes, because it's like, I would love to connect with people of older generations because I find value in people who've lived here for a long time. But I find that group of people really hard to connect with. Simply because they just see you as like some little kid who doesn't know anything and doesn't want anything or whatever. And it's like, my life just doesn't look like yours. And it can't. Because you came of age in 1984. Okay?
Yeah, and I think back then there was also less of like follow passion and more of like be responsible. And so I think that culture in itself is also very misunderstood by them. Like, I don't think life was there. I think there were things that you could enjoy in life, but it was less about enjoyment and more about the bare minimum of things have to be taken care of. So, and people were, I think, okay doing that because it was a change from, women they were at war for a while. And then, it was like they were able to come home and, be with their families. So I think they found contentment in that. You know what I mean?
I mean, maybe.
And it was different for them, at least.
I can get that And then, that was really the first time that the feminist movement really came in for them. Is like, that's when women could start, getting credit cards or owning property.
Exactly.
Like, that was the first early beginnings of, like, what we enjoy now. And I'm not even here to say that, like, those were major improvements that needed to happen. And, like, thank God for the boomer people who went out and fought for that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not even opposed to that, because obviously we reap the benefit of it today, of being able to make these sort of choices. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like, it's because of boomer women. So, we pay homage for sure to that. It's just like, how do we today learn from each other?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's sometimes that group, and maybe they see us as reluctant. I don't know. Sometimes that group can be just a little bit reluctant, and it makes it difficult.
Yeah. But I think too that, like, one thing I've had to learn about boomers is this is not their time. This is not their generation. That has already gone and passed. So I'm not here for your approval. I'm really not.
Too. Yeah.
Because, and don't be wrong, I hear what you're saying. Like, I would love to speak with people who are older than me and who can provide me wisdom. But wisdom is like, wisdom to me is like a suggestion. Yeah, it doesn't have to do with age, and I think it's more of like a suggestion, and not to be disrespectful, because that's how most people would consider that, rolling my eyes. But I think everybody's on this life journey, and everybody's life is going to look different. Me and Courtney are twins, and our lives look vastly different, right? Even if we were identical twins, our lives may have looked even more drastically different, or even less drastically different. Even how we have experienced a lot of the same things, and how we have internalized them, and how we have dealt with them, and how they have looked in our lives, vastly different. So we're on this journey called life, and this time, for whatever reason, whatever purpose, whatever plan that has been destined for us, just like the boomers were, and we are going to figure this out as so, period.
Yeah,
boomers, I don't need your approval to do that.
Yeah, that too. That. Well, I don't want to, because our parents actually aren't even boomers.
Yeah, they're not.
That would be our grandparents' generation.
Yeah.
But some people our age do have boomer parents who are in that generation. And I think sometimes, I mean, I've met some boomers and I'm like, okay, this is a good boomer, but you can tell that they were probably always offbeat in their generation, and then now that they're more progressive, things have progressed more. Like they more fit into our generation just because we're already kind of. Yeah. Progress has continued. So it's like they've been waiting for like 40 years or whatever to like fit in with the crowd or whatever. But
I think too, even general in that, like normally, but I feel like your liberal boomers are technically conservative now.
Or probably
and that's
more
also
moderate.
a problem. Yeah, and I think that's also because what they consider as innovative is like normal to us. And that's what happens with every generation. What you are being innovative on is their normal now, right? And so that is there has to be a shift in how you think about things going forward, because you exist through those generations if you live long term. And I think the hard thing about it is you have to be willing to shift as a boomer into those things to comply, or you either choose to be out on the outskirts. A lot of them choose to just be on the outskirts because they feel like how they were raised was the right way.
And I also feel like it's hard at an older age. I bet it's harder to change.
Oh, for sure.
It's got to be harder to change. Like we really can. We're on the internet daily. We see what's new, what's popping, what's going on, what's happening. Like we really don't change for us. Is very like, oh, I'm just gonna try this. Let's go do that. But like that's what's up, And
I think change is them, also very.
There's barriers.
Yeah, and I think change for us is in our face all the time.
Yeah,
like it's very normal to us.
But they don't. They have barriers to even understand change because their group, their social group is older people.
Yeah. Yeah, and the exposure is even less. Like they may not use social media.
Yeah.
They may not, have, their interaction with, say, their great grandkids is going to be like very different than
very small. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
that's actually something I've noticed is like, when I'll go around boomer older folks, I realize that like I'm probably their first interaction in a while with like a young person. Younger person, and I'm like, oh yeah, of course, we'll just put you on TikTok and we'll just put you on like there's this whole like world out here, and they're like, what?
They have no idea what it is.
Oh yeah, or they're like, what is that? Or they're like very mistrustful of it, and you're like,
You know what I've learned too about older generations? Older generations continue to live in their generation and what they consider works for them.
I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that, but the thing is, I think part of it is like, because it's your normal, your brain is processing a little slower and things like that. I think the older you get, the harder it becomes to immerse yourself into that.
You're probably fearful of it too. It's probably like,
yeah, I think so.
I don't know if I'll be able to step into it and like understand it or do it well or whatever, you know?
Yeah. And I think the people who do it the best are the ones who like, things they interact with things that are like more forward thinking. So people who, like, for example, like a lot of the older individuals who are really into fashion. That's one thing. Those people are always, they usually get it. And I think the reason why they get it is because fashion is always changing. They're always evolving. They always are becoming. They always are innovating. They are always open to change, evolving, all those things. So it's normal to them versus like I think most of your boomers, it was kind of like get a job, stay there for 40 years and retire, you know? So the idea of change is first of all new, let alone like seen as this big thing to tackle.
That's it's just so wild that like growing up like how much things have changed. Even as a kid, that model of go get a job, sit there for a long time was still more the norm. And now it sounds so archaic. It sounds so like you're going to sit at a job for 40 years. And like you kind of laugh at it like, okay, you know.
Versus, I think it depends on the job. You know what I mean? Like if you have a job
it does depend on the job, but it's that model is like dying rapidly.
Oh,
very
yeah,
quickly.
For sure. Yeah, I do agree.
And it feels almost like, it's almost like referring to like I Love Lucy as like contemporary television or something. You're like, it's in black and white. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's starting to become that more and more. Because I'm like, I don't know anybody, even the normal girlies, you know, non-artist people, who sit at a job.
I mean, I know some people who do jobs. I know some people who are content with that, unfortunately. But these people also, at our age, but some people, they have how can I say this nicely? Extremely dependent family dynamics. That's what I will say.
Maybe that makes it part of it, but I mean, I guess I know people who who obviously are in careers, right? Like, or they're like people who are like lawyers or teachers or whatever. But they always have this like, okay, I'm doing this for 5 years, moving on. I'm doing this for X amount of years and I'm moving on because what I really want to get to is X, Y, Z. Like, I think the mentality in the boomer generation was get somewhere and sit down.
Yeah, maybe.
Versus a 2-year plan, 3-year plan, 4-year, 5, like we kind of see things in like increments now.
Yeah.
You know? Because I mean,
and I think we see life as like we use this as a stepping stone. So this is the step. Here is the top game, right? Here's the top goal. But we're going to take all of these steps, and it might be 5 staircases, but we use those staircases to get not to staircases, like, but maybe 5 flights to get to where we're trying to go.
And maybe that's just our personal outlook on things. Maybe that's not the general consensus for people our age. They would prefer to sit down somewhere. I don't know. But
I think they would prefer. I just think it's financially, which I think that's a heavy motivator in our culture for right now. It is not looking too great. I mean, statistically speaking, is looking like we're going to likely not own homes. It's going to be because the prices of homes are increasing on top of interest rates. So we're not going to own homes. It's you're almost priced out of cars unless you're rich. And to be fair, the rich circle has to stay small in order for the rich to really be rich. So, you know, to be fair, if the rich expands to, let's say, 5%, your $1 million is going to be worth less. They also don't want that. So they want you to work at this job, to be fair. So you have, you know, cost of rent skyrocketed, you know. You're almost priced out of vehicles, something that you need to get to where you're going, because now we are driving further to get to said jobs. Your community is pretty much gone. You probably have to stay with your parent a little bit longer. You know, pay off your debt. The cost of student loans, ridiculous. The interest rates on student loans, ridiculous. So it's just like a double whammy. Like, it's just like punch after punch after punch after punch after punch.
It definitely feels like something that we're handed, not something we created, though. I'm not going.
Oh, for sure. That's what's happening.
Like something, because like, you know, this stuff was going on. We were just stepping into college or whatever, and it's continued to go on and get worse, especially post-pandemic. So, you know, it's sort of like, I don't know why we had to be handed like the shitty end of the straw. It just feels like we're like constantly being handed the shitty end of the straw.
I think every generation thinks that, though, so...
I mean, maybe that's true. Maybe every generation thinks that. And maybe there's some benefits to the way we live now that we'll, like, figure out. And then, you know, 50 years from now, the kids will be like, those, you know, Gen Z, late millennials, they made it so horrible for us. And we're, you know, like, they're going to probably do that, too.
Oh, yeah, no, they are. I mean, it's inevitable. Like, I think with every generation, you're going to have the critique of that generation. And I think our critique would probably be those things of, like, you know, our moms and dads were lazy. Our moms and dads were like, or they didn't sit at jobs we can't shake off. Maybe we were very in tune to our mental health. You know, we check that one off. Maybe, right? Or the healing. Will we get credit for that? Probably not. You know, just like we don't give boomers much credit. you know, and so
I try with them. I try. Lord knows I try sometimes, especially like in the stores and stuff. I try, but it's like they always. It's like they really are stuck in 1985, and I'm like, we can't keep, please.
I agree, but at the end of the day, like, I do also understand it, because I think that, like, change is something, especially if you're not used to change is difficult, right? But,
I guess our whole life has been changed, so it's like,
that's what I'm saying.
So
all we've known is change. I mean, to think of it, we've gone through a lot of, like, historical changes, you know? Yeah, like we've experienced 9/11. You've seen the shift from pre-9/11 to post-9/11. You've seen we've seen presidential changes pre and post. We've seen the pandemic pre and post. We've seen the housing market. I don't know what we're going to see this time go around.
Generationally, we're traumatized.
Pretty much.
Because I'm like, now that I'm thinking about it, because we were born in 96. We pretty much 5 years later was 9/11, and then that kicked off 85 other chain of events. And I'm like, have we ever known peace?
I don't think so. We've always been in constant.
And then, you know, the pandemic, and now we're really still recovering from the pandemic, and like stuff's gotten even worse. So it's like, have we known?
Oh, I think the pandemic has even exacerbated it even more. You know what? I was watching something. I think I sent it to you. Prosperity. The thing about the pandemic is people had actual time to think.
Yeah, that's true.
And boy, oh boy, which I think that's kind of like what America tries to prevent us from doing. We had time to think, research, explore, sit down and chill for once. And that has exacerbated, I think, our generation into what we are today.
Yeah. When they look back, they do like the documentary on like Gen X / no, not Gen X, millennial / Gen Z, which we're in that little like in between area.
Yeah. I'm a millennial.
Catelyn calls herself a millennial, but I think we're like zillennials. We're like in between.
Yeah, okay, I'll take a zillennial.
Like, we go in between. Like they say, like anywhere from 1995 to like 2000 is like a zillennial, because you're not quite a Z, but not quite a millennial.
Yeah, exactly.
So that little.
So we're like right on the cusp.
Yeah, we're like right on the cusp. So, you know, it's like we kind of like, it's just been like one generation, one trauma after another. Like, you know how they're like the boomers, like 1950s and 60s were just great times for America. Everybody was great. Everybody loved everything, which we all know was turbulent times as well, too. We're not saying those weren't turbulent times, you know, but like this sort of like relative peace and prosperity. And it's like, actually, since we've been born, it's just been one issue after another.
But I think they think the same thing for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Of like, it's just one. And the thing is, like, those things are so relative to what your environment is and your situation, the time that you're born and who you're around. So, like, everybody thinks they have gone through the worst of the worst, you know?
That's true.
And that's another question that I like when it comes to, like, the thought of having kids or not having kids. That also plays in that, because we're just like, oh, it's just so bad for us. It's so bad for us. It's so bad for us. I hear that. And don't be wrong, there's a lot of hardship, you know what I mean? In our generation that we're currently living in. But I think, too, that, like, everybody thinks it's bad. So it's like there is no objective or an unbiased way of looking at it because you're experiencing it. So
yeah. I guess we should caveat, we're not ragging on the boomers here because we realize a lot of people have parent boomers and grandparent boomers. Oh, okay, well, we are. Because, well, there's stuff to rag on. There's stuff to rag on.
But, you know, right? I do think this. I will say this as a disclaimer. It's not ragging in the sense of like, oh, you're a terrible person. Like, you have experienced what you've experienced and gone through what you've gone through as a boomer. And your life was very, very and vastly different from the lives that we live today. And you're entitled to live life how you want to live it. And that's great and grand and fine and dandy. But caveat here, that you cannot expect us to do what you did. It's a different time. It's a different era. It's a different way of life. It's a different way of thinking. We've had time to think. And I think our generation does a little bit more critical thinking in the sense of like, what do we really want? What do we not really want? And maybe how can we change it? But
I think we've been forced to critically think because shit has hit the fan very quickly for people our age.
I don't think we've been forced to critically think because I think, especially as a zillennial, we were made to subscribe to the traditional things of life, like go to school, get out, work a job every day, and do those things. I think the pandemic has exacerbated critical thinking. Personally, that's what I think.
Yeah, maybe. I see. You know who we're skipping over?
What?
Mom's generation, Gen X, because I feel like they don't. They get really and it's like it's ironic they would get skipped over because they're like known as like latchkey kids, right? Like people who
for sure
were skipped over even in their childhood, right?
Yeah.
So
very,
or just
very
kind of like left to their own devices, like figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of them are coming up now, obviously behind the boomers, and they're in more like middle management to management positions, or even like higher level positions. You know, like so they are also replicating some of these boomer.
But that makes sense, though. They're latchkey babies. It's copy and paste, you know.
It's sort of like
do what I say just because I say it type of mentality with boomers.
But I think they get like really, because I'm like, sometimes I feel like they empathize with the younger people because they're like, we see what's going on. We see the writing on the wall. But I think they also just I think some of them, not all of them.
Yeah.
Some of them are just, they do exactly what the boomers did and they just copy and paste.
Yeah.
But I think some of them, they tend to be more like, I can see where you're coming from, though.
I think that generation is that is the lost. Like, I hate to say this, but your exes are like your lost kids, and I think you could tell.
Like the middle redheaded stepchild.
Yeah. Like they are the middle child.
Yeah.
And we are. I would say millennials are like the babies, you know, and they're like, no, I'm not gonna do that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And so, I that makes a lot of sense. You know, the middle child has to choose typically how they're going to show up in the world because I think they're often the most forgotten child. You know, you have a child your first child is your child who you put all your energy in, and all they know is like, you know, for an extended period of time, you existing in their world and you provide everything to them, right? Kind of like an only child until that second baby comes. And then that middle child kind of gets the shock of the world when the third baby comes, and the third baby is just like all the energy and resources are going there. And then that middle child is just lost. You still have the older child because the older child, you need that older child to somewhat step in and kind of help you. And the older child knows what the world is before the other two children exist. And they've had some of that all 24 hours, 7 times a day, intention provided into them, where the middle child has never known that. All they've known is splitting their time.
Yeah.
That's all they've ever known.
I also think Gen X, because we said, we even skip over them usually in conversation. Like usually it's like Gen Z and then boom. It's like never Gen X having a talking point, really. It's always just like, like to skip over. Like, I guess they sort of are there. And it's like, they're really about to become the next boomers. Like we actually pay attention to them. And I think they like, from what I've seen, and not just like our own parents, but like other Gen X adults, they tend to be more like, I wish we could have been a little more like, have like, I'm not doing this type mentality that like younger people have.
I don't think so.
At least what I see, and this is me speaking also from people that I see on TikTok. Okay, so
okay, I think
like the older generation there.
Yeah, no, I think you have to base this off of people's actions. That's what I base this off of, because TikTok, people can show what they want to show on TikTok. I
That's true. And they tend to be more liberal over there, so they tend to be more aware. Yeah. I'm just saying, they seem more like, they're more like, I'm so glad the younger kids are just out here like kicking ass and like, absolutely not, we're not doing this anymore. We're like just totally dismantling the whole thing.
I can see that. I think they are, I will agree with you in that I do think there is a level of appreciation, because I think the Z's were the first to notice that whatever their parents did was not working. So they tried to do something different with their kids. Yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, our parents' generation were like, they probably noticed things and were like, this is not right.
Yeah.
You know, we heard critiques growing up all of our life, but they were just like, well, I don't know what else to do. But I think millennials and zillennials, really probably more zillennials and then Z's, are very much the first, like, absolutely not. Not doing it kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, millennials and Z's for sure. The Z's worry me a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
You think so?
The Z's, there's a lot of mental health going on in Z's. I think so too. I think part of it is dissatisfaction with the way the world is running. But it makes me wonder, because
they like were born into like some mess, though. I mean, but like kind of, we were just slightly born before the mess, just like ever so slightly, and now we're like, most of our childhood was in the mess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think, too, that, like, we were, the boomers were like, we don't talk about problems, we don't deal with problems. So then you have the latchkey kids who are just like, okay, I have to follow suit, just because someone said X, Y, and Z, I have to do X, Y, and Z. So it makes sense why our generation or the generation after us are dealing with mental health things. And if that is being trickled down, because, the millennials are having the Z's. So. Yeah. Or some of the Z's. The older millennials, probably. Well,
I noticed that the older millennials are getting closer to like 40-ish now, right? So they're getting more traditional. I don't want to say traditional, but like even millennial is becoming more of a like term for a slightly like older adult or like middle-aged adult.
Yeah.
Versus, unfortunately, that's why I don't know if I consider myself necessarily a millennial.
Because we're almost 30, so...
Well, we're almost 30, but that's why I consider myself like more of a zillennial, because it's like kind of both.
Yeah, I guess. I'll take a zillennial.
Zillennial, and then Z is obviously still... I mean, Zs are growing up fast, too. Like, they're getting into their mid-20s to like...
Is there a new name for the next generation of kids? Yeah.
I think the kids born after like 2010 is like Generation Alpha or something.
Oh God, Alpha.
Yeah, I'm like,
now we're talking about the Elon Musk of the world.
Like robot kids.
Oh God,
like the ones on like
run abort mission
tablets. So their first word was tablet, and like and like whatever, like little like YouTube kiddie show. That's what I think about with them. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's bananas. Anyways, okay, we got off topic vastly. Yeah. Okay, what else do we have expectations we want to get rid of? Is it your turn?
I think it's your turn.
Oh, okay.
I think it's something about our father.
Got it. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. That's all we got there. I think one expectation I really want to get rid of is that other people's opinions, even if they are close to you and they are from respected loved ones, is it doesn't have to have a weight in your life. You know what I mean? Not saying that you don't have to I think it's important to hear just so you can critically think, but it doesn't have to make or break what you're doing. Like I said earlier, I think we're put on this life to experience life and see that to its full capacity. And that's going to look different. Even if two people are going through the exact same thing, it's going to look vastly different. And so you have to figure out how you're going to appear in this world and how you're going to interact with this world and how you're going to show up in this world. So listening to other people's, can help guide you in the sense of at least thinking about the choices that you are making and things, but their opinion is not Bible, period. So letting go of the expectation that other people's opinions has to have a weight in your life.
I think that's good. That kind of ties back to the family thing I think we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Now that we've circled back. But yeah, I know that was an issue we had with our nuclear family, is I think we all weighed each other's opinions a lot because we kind of we're like all we had, At least I'll speak for me. And
I think that was more of a dangerous. Yeah, I agree. I think that was more of a you thing, because I've always kind of been I don't care. Mm-hmm. So that could be a core personality difference. I don't know, but Another thing that I think plays, and you can, I don't know if you want me to say this. I won't go too deep, but I think your level of opinions also mattered more because I think you were more heavily dependent on us. You needed us to do X, Y, and Z to get X, Y, and Z done for yourself. And so it was like, well, okay, well, if you were doing X for me, then I should at least take, I don't know if this was exact thought, but like subconsciously, if you're doing X for me, then I guess I should at least hear your opinion and weigh that in some way, somehow.
Yeah, I mean,
make
I
sense?
think that probably subconsciously was part of it, but I think also like I did value like my nuclear family's opinion.
Oh yeah, I think we valued it. I just think it had a heavier weight for you. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it had a heavier weight, and like for a longer time I was more dependent than you were, but I think that's because like you jumped the gun.
Yeah, I was like, get me out of here
a lot quicker than I did, and and I'm not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just like you. So in comparison, it was always like, oh, you're behind. You're like 2 steps behind. You're 1, 2 steps, whatever steps behind.
I don't think we considered it behind. I think we just I think it was more just an inconvenience than behind.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying, but I mean that ended up weighing on me because it was like, oh, well, why so-and-so, your other sibling is doing XYZ, and now we have to watch out for you. You're the one who's like, we always gotta like.
But I had the same pressure, bro. Everyone was like, well, Courtney's smart, so you should be smart. Or Courtney plays sports, so you should play sports. And I'm like, no, that's not me. I'm like, no, sorry.
And that's what I was saying. I was like, well, that's not me. Like, I mean, this is my timeline on things. So it might not look like this person's. So
that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that's the difference between the dependency. Because, like, something simple like you needed us to drive you places. And it's like, now that's an inconvenience. Like, I had a job, mom had a job. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm saying, but that's still like pressure regardless. It's not like a lesser pressure.
I think the less pressure would have been just getting your license.
Yeah, but then what was I also being told? Oh, well, you can't drive. Oh, well, who's going to do this for you? Who's going to do that? And so I was just like, I just didn't do it for a long time until I was like, no, I'm doing it now. And I demanded that we do it.
I mean, I guess.
And then suddenly it became like, oh, okay, well, glad you did that because I demanded to do it.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You could have demanded to do it then too. Like, I guess it just wasn't a priority of yours.
Given it, partly it wasn't a priority, but the other part of it was, okay, so you still need somebody's assistance even in doing that, those small things.
But I think it would have been less of an inconvenience is what I'm saying. And that, like, if you say first, and I use the license because it's just like, if you have your license, you could drive yourself to volleyball practice. I can go to work.
Yeah, but the other thing is like, okay, so we would have had to split a car.
And that would have been fine though, because you just come pick me up after volleyball practice.
I feel like you were also, I don't know, y'all were very, I don't know if y'all realized at the time, but y'all really were not speaking positivity into my becoming or doing those things in my life at the time. And that weighed on me a lot heavier than I think you even knew. Like, y'all would be like, oh, you can't drive. You don't know how to drive. You don't know how to do this. You don't know how to do that. Like, y'all would say stuff like that to me all the time. And it got into my head. And so it made me like fearful of even doing it until I went away to college and said, no, I can do this. And I need to do it for myself.
But it wasn't saying like, I remember saying those things, but it wasn't like saying those things to be like, oh, you can't do them. It was saying them because you like, it was because you physically could not do it. Like you didn't have the license to do it.
Maybe that wasn't what your intention was, but let's think about who you were also at that time too.
Oh no, I know who I was.
I'm just saying it was another like form of the toxicity that was also coming out. So it did not feel like I was not getting your intention. I can assure you that.
I mean, I don't doubt that. I'm not taking that away from you. Like my delivery and my communication skills were beyond poor. Okay. I will take responsibility of that. But I do think too that like, and to be honest, this doesn't even really matter, right? Because it's all done now. We're all adults and we all are thriving and doing well. So it doesn't matter. It just was, I think, an inconvenience in a sense of like, I was trying to live my best life. You were trying to live your best life. But somehow your things seem to always inconvenience other parts of everyone else's life. And that was just vastly annoying to me. That's all.
Yes. I know. I can understand that. I take responsibility for that part of it, too. I recognize that. I'm just saying I didn't have any other option.
That is where I disagree. I think there was another option, but okay.
I mean, I could have, but there was like all this, like, I guess I could have tried to like get my license, but then I was like, okay, well, then I knew you needed a car more than I did because you had work. I had volleyball, so I was like,
yeah,
well,
but I mean, I could have been dropped off at work. Like on countless occasions, mom would drop me off at work. Volleyball was a lot further typically. So it was just kind of like, it would have made sense for you to have a car more than probably me. Like I didn't work that far.
I didn't realize that was even like, I don't, at the time you just seemed so, I need a car. I need it. That's what it felt like. And I was like, well, I'm already doing volleyball, which is already a financial cost. So I'm going to like beg for this vehicle that I can just take a backseat on.
But then somebody else has to take you back and forth to practice.
And that was like, to me, that was like the lesser of two evil at the time. I'm not saying it makes sense.
It just didn't make sense. That's what I'm saying. Like it just still doesn't make sense to me, but okay.
Well, regardless, that was the past.
Yes.
And we let go of expectations of who was or wasn't doing whatever because we were both acting out of pretty much our own desires, and that's like how things shaked out. And we could.
I beg to differ. I was not acting out of my own desire. I was acting out of like what really makes sense here, and it was not making sense to me. On top of like I had to pay to take you back and forth to these things, so that was coming out of my check. It was just like this is not gonna work. That's all.
Okay. I mean,
I guess that's one of those things I would let go of.
I didn't know that's how you like felt about it. Like,
I mean,
frankly.
It was your choices in life became everybody else's problems very often. And that was annoying. But I will let go of that expectation of like, I don't even know if that's an expectation. I will let go of that responsibility.
Okay. Well, I'll take accountability for my choices, making other people's lives, I guess, more difficult or affecting other people's lives. Like I recognize that was, at that time, that's what me engaging in that activity did for our family. Yeah. I just say we all had different pressures that made us make different choices.
Yeah, I guess.
And I don't feel like it's like beneficial to be like, well, you didn't do this, or you could have done, or you should have done. It's like, that's actually like why we're doing this exercise, is to like let go of unmet expectations.
I'm not saying it in a sense of like what you should have done. I'm saying a recognition for your role in making life difficult.
That's what I did.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was just saying, I recognize and I take accountability for the fact that my activities also made other people have to shift their lives.
Yeah. And I'm saying, I'm not blaming you. I'm saying I think there was a lack of recognition at that time, which made life with you more difficult and less enjoyable. Because you didn't want me to be your mom. But at the end of the day, because mom was a single parent, no matter how you look at it, I, in some ways, became like a mother role. Not because I wanted to be there necessarily, but those are the decisions that you made that made me be there. If mom couldn't take you, I had to take you. Correct?
I hear that.
But you didn't want me to be your mom. It's like, well, then get your license. And that was not an option for you. You wanted to just play volleyball.
I didn't feel like it wasn't an option. I felt like it was like, well, you're already doing this volleyball. You've already cost us so much. Don't add this other thing onto it. That's how I looked at it.
No, I think that's how you may have perceived it. But I think people were trying to get you to expand and see other ways of like, okay, well, if you're going to do this, you have to.
That was their intention, but that was lost on me.
Yeah, maybe. I think even like the job thing, mom was like, get a job so you can help pay for it because it was just becoming expensive for her, right? And
I did get a job.
You did
That's
get
why I
a
worked at
job.
Subway.
Yeah, but I mean, did you help with volleyball costs?
That was the year I quit doing volleyball because I was like, you know what? I don't even care. I mean, I could try to go play in college, but why go play in college if I can already get a scholarship to do this academic institution and I still don't have to like pay for it and I can get into a better college? So why do it? And that's why I was working to pay for volleyball. That's why I initially got the job. But then when I got the scholarship to go to Wake, I was like, I'll go to Wake.
Fair enough. But I mean, even in that, like that
wasn't a cost to our family. So I was like, why? The only cost it would be to whether I play volleyball or not. That's it. So I did what she asked me to do, which was work. And I continued to have jobs even after I didn't play volleyball in college.
Love a good working queen. Ooh.
And from there, that's when I was like, okay, I'll get my license. And I didn't even get a car until after I came home from college.
When did you get your license?
And I got it my freshman year of college. So it wasn't that far off after.
Fair enough.
But I got it after I stopped playing volleyball. And there was like a year or so that I didn't play volleyball at all. Because I didn't play club. I was really sort of like fed up with the whole thing at that point.
Fair enough.
And I knew mom was like, I'm not going to be able to pay for it. I'm not going to pay for it. And I was like, well, I mean, that's when I just made the decision, like, to either go academically or I guess try to get in and play in college. And like, Wake seemed like a better opportunity at the time. So that's what I did.
Fair enough.
And I didn't pay for it. I was working to pay for it.
Fair enough. Okay. I just think it's just agree to disagree. Like you have your version of things and I have mine. This is a prime example of how we've experienced similar things at the same time, simultaneously, and we see things very, 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 very different. So,
well, we're different people making different choices.
Agreed.
Anyway,
the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, what don't matter now. So,
well, I mean, what matters is like we both are on track for our own lives now. We both graduated college. We both have worked in career fields. We both transitioned out of career fields.
Yep.
And we both sustain our own lives. So,
and we are not boomers.
So I would say, actually, despite whatever happened, it's like, well, you know, it's like hindsight's 2020, and like, not saying that you don't recognize things that happen, but you're not losing sleep. Neither one of us is losing sleep because of the other person's choices at this point in our lives.
No, definitely not.
And that's the beauty of like, okay, well, you got up, made stuff happen for you. I got up, made stuff happen for me.
Fair enough. Yeah, and I think too that like that's one thing that you learn as a sibling is like I said, when you have other ones, you have to sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
It's just part of the land, I guess, the layout, and somebody is going to probably sacrifice more than the other, and that just has to be okay, I guess.
Yeah, and it's like also at different times in your life too.
Yeah, and it depends on different interests, personalities. Like it just depends, I guess. So whatever.
And believe me, definitely your discontentment was known at the time. It was not.
Oh, for sure.
Was definitely aware of that.
Oh no, yeah. And to be fair, I think that my discontentment was presented in an unhealthy way, and I think my discontentment was perceived as something other than what I think it was. So that's like part of, I think the issue at the time was I really wasn't talking. I wasn't communicating. So nobody really knew what my true discontentment was. So, yeah. It was just all around a sticky situation. as a therapist, my therapist would say, she would say, it was the perfect storm. So
maybe it's just normal sibling stuff. Like,
I think so.
I mean, I think there's like worse, like worse things that siblings could be doing.
Yeah, I've heard worse.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've heard worse. Like, I'll take I didn't want to drive my sister to volleyball practice, or my sister was driving before I did, over some of the other stuff we know about other people's siblings, frankly.
Yeah. I mean, I do get what you're saying, but that doesn't negate how I felt at the time of like.
No, it doesn't negate it. I'm not negating it. I'm just saying we didn't go any deeper than that, frankly.
Yeah.
Which is like a more positive, is like a better, more ideal situation than like, because I know for me, I tend to like, because that becomes your marker for everything, is like, well, that's the worst thing that's ever happened to me. It's like, yes. But if you look at the bell curve, you're actually in the 90th percentile.
Compared, of success.
Of success. And not that things are about comparison, but it's like, it's like these things are like workable, and we can be like, I forgive you for that, or that really, I'm sorry that really happened. That wasn't my intention. Really, some people is like, my sister murdered my ex, and like, and we had kids with so and so, and it's like, whoa, some real hurt and things to unpack.
Facts.
So I do think it's worth looking at, like, okay, what is the severity of this situation?
Oh, no, I do agree with that. Like, on the Richter scale, we're at like a 2, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just saying. But I do think, too, that, like, it is... trauma is trauma, So I think that was a source of... And one thing I've had to recognize is I think that trauma was oftentimes self-induced, and trying to be empathetic to our mom, and like being mindful of like how to help her in a way. Not that was my responsibility, but because of lack of parent too, we kind of just had to. We all had to step in and be that role at some point, and that was also.
Well, it makes you as a kid the dependent person in that situation. I think it makes you like, you prematurely make the adult decisions for yourself. You say, oh, I can't do this because of our family situation, or I can't do that because of our family situation, and all that.
Which is true,
and it is true. And I think playing volleyball was one situation where I was like, no, I want to do this. Because otherwise I'd always kind of, well, I can't do this because of our family situation, or this is because of our family situation. And I was like, I guess I just got into my like 13, 14-year-old head. I was like, what makes me any different than these other like 2-parent households or these kids or whatever? Like, I can do just exactly what these kids do. I didn't want my life to feel like it had to be minimized because of the parent situation I grew up in. Obviously,
I hear that, but I think
that's what my rationale was.
I hear that, but there were some financial things that were definitely saying otherwise. That's what I didn't really understand.
Yeah.
Because the way I think about it is, if you do not handle X, Y, and Z, somebody else becomes responsible for the things that you do not handle. Just like, say we live in the same house together and you don't wash your dishes. That becomes somebody else's problem if you do not wash your dishes.
Yes, I understand that.
Same
I'm just
thing.
Saying, that was the rationale for 13-year-old me, okay?
I hear that, but I guess at 13 I was just thinking very differently, I guess.
Maybe. And it's not that I don't feel like I couldn't have thought that way. Like, I had thought that way for a long time. I guess I just was like...
I think it was your just I don't care attitude at that time.
Well, it was because the other thing is, we lived without. And so the only way to really...
I don't think we lived without, but...
Well, we didn't have the same, like, financial situation as other people in our immediate area.
Yeah, but I think that's okay, personally.
I think it's okay. It's not that it has to be bad. I'm just saying, like, it was like a, why them and not me?
That's but that to me, that's comparison. And, like, I didn't care to do that. It was
comparison, but I was 13.
But I was 13. I did not do that.
Okay. And maybe you didn't. I'm just saying, it's like, that's like where 13-year-old me was at.
I agree.
And I'm not
That's
saying
fair.
it's right. It's just
That's
that's
what I'm
just where it
saying.
was.
This could be a core personality difference because I was very like, I don't really care what you have to say. I'm doing what I'm going to do. Like I think I was one of those kids of like, if my heart and mind's to it, it's happening with you or without you, and I'm going to find a way for me to do it, and for me to do it alone. I think that was more of my mindset. So
I guess I hear that. But at 13, I couldn't have done it without somebody. I couldn't have done what I wanted to do without parental whatever. That's just the truth. I realized that it came at a cost, and and that it was comparison, and it was all these things. I recognize that. I'm not saying that that's not the truth, and that I don't take accountability for it. But I'm just saying that all I can say is what my rationale was for a 13-year-old. Even if
I hear that. At 13, you don't have all of the things to make the best
decision, because I would make a vastly different decision, or I know there's a different way to do these things today.
So I guess I have a question. So say you had a kid and your kid was coming at you like you were coming at mom for your volleyball needs, right? What would you do differently?
Well, first off, just for me personally, I would try to find a way to give them the opportunity to do it.
Okay.
But just because I do see that there is a value in that.
So what if, let's say, like your finances cannot afford it? What are you doing? Let's say like you have the same situation that like mom, maybe not the same, like similar situation. Let's just say that to set up.
I would still try to find a way, even if it couldn't be financial, I still try to find a way to help them to participate in the activity.
Okay,
for whatever level I could
say
afford.
They don't have a license.
I know more about it now.
Agreed. They don't have a license. Their sister has to drive them to volleyball practice, which is on the other side of town. This other child has to work. Let's say this other child has their own sports that they're playing. It's unaffordable. You cannot afford it. Like you cannot. There is no make it work. It's like you can't take this child to practice because you have to. Either the kid can't play because you have to work another job, or you not work and you cannot afford it.
I don't know. I just feel like I would just finesse, but I feel like that's what I do now. Because I think there's like, okay, maybe we like move to doing things on the weekends, or I just think there's so many more resources now that I didn't know about at that time. And there's so many more ways to be involved in it with a lower cost that I did not know about.
And I don't think in where we were born at. Maybe where you live in at currently, there's more resources. But where we lived at, it was pay the money, period.
Yeah.
That was the only resource.
I recognize that now. I'm just saying, like, I just feel like that's like I guess I'm not going to say it's an unfair question, but it feels like, well, I know how to finesse it now because I've like been through this thing.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, do that. Even if you know how to finesse it, right? It doesn't take away from the load. Like that means you're going to have your job that you have, like your full-time job. You're going to be working a nighttime job. So how are you actually going to be able to take the kid?
I guess I'd see if I could like get a friend to take them.
Okay, so now you're not a present parent because you're always working.
And then I would check and make sure that I would just be like, well, you know, the cost of this to our family, like, do you know? And then
you have another child. So what is that other child doing? Just alone for the ride?
I guess.
Okay. All right.
Or, I mean, I try to do my best. I just feel like that's like, I feel like that question is like, obviously that's like how our family situation shook out. And I wasn't looking at it that way as a kid.
I understand that, but that's what I'm saying. You as the adult, it doesn't seem like the opinion has changed.
I recognize, well, because that's what a priority is for me. Just like your priority for your life is maintaining the household that you maintain. But for me, it is about pursuing the things that I want to pursue and encouraging other people to do that.
Yeah,
Everybody
but as a
doesn't have
parent, your
that.
first goal is to make sure the bare necessities for all of your children are met first.
Yes, and that's
And
what I
if
would
that
be
is
doing my best to
lacking,
do.
but that's what I'm saying. And that sacrifice, some of those other things were lacking for other parties involved, is what I'm saying.
I recognize
So is that
that.
really the worth the sacrifice? Now you're pretty much losing a child, both of them really, for this one kid to succeed and go after their dreams and hopes and passion. And the other one doesn't get to do that.
Thanks for listening to part 2 of our discussion on releasing unmet expectations. Stay tuned for part 3.